So this video is for people who want to be using the alligator indicator. If you're stuck with indicators and you don't know how to use it, I'll just be explaining a bit. So the very first thing that you want to know and notice about the alligator is that we want to see these zones where we have massive consolidation. Okay, so you see that these three lines crossed at this area, so this is a good supply zone. That's the first trick. When you see areas where price crosses, the three lines cross, that's in most of the cases a very good supply or demand zone, depending on where those lines cross. So for instance, this could be a very good demand zone. This is one of the areas where they cross, so the area, this could be a good zone to buy from. Okay, I can put many examples, but for clarity, as you can see, even this area where they cross, if you took your buy from this area here, okay, you can take your buy from the area where they cross, and then stop loss is underneath the demand zone after they cross. Okay, so for people who want to be trading with the alligator indicator, as simple as that, you can use this as your simple tool. Okay, stop loss is just underneath. For instance, if you took a position here after the cross, let me first remove the the rectangles. Okay, so if you are to use this as your entry point, this is your entry point here. So if you sold here, your stop loss will be underneath the first supply zone. Okay, so this was, if you observe from the left, we had a drop, a rally based drop. Okay, and then we had a pullback, okay, above, sorry for that, we had a pullback above at around 41.69, and then price made another lower low here at 41.68. Okay, so this was a lower low, so you can put your stop loss above this lower low, and TP you can aim for at least a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, but for me I love a 1 to 3 more, so you can put a 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio. Okay, so something here, we just observe where they crossed. Well, they crossed at around this area, approximately this area. Okay, so you put your stop loss underneath the previous low, and then you aim for 1 to 2, as simple as that. And yeah, this method works a lot. If you know what you're doing, this method is very efficient. Okay, so again here, if you observe, if you took in your cells here where they crossed, where this green line crossed the red and blue, this was the first supply zone. We had a drop based drop, so you put your stop loss underneath this level here, underneath this demand zone, supply zone, sorry, and the higher, the last major zone. Okay, and then after, as you aim for 1 to 2, as simple as that. We can do this over and over again. We just look for those positions where, because what you don't want is you don't want consolidation. You want moves which are trending. You want it to be trending so that you can take good entry positions. Something here, as you can see, price, all these three lines crossed at around this area. So the moment they cross, you just put your stop loss underneath the previous low, okay, the previous red candle before the break, and then you just hold your positions until you have a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. It works at least 60%. It has a 60% win rate. You just have to be patient. Okay, just have to be patient. But yeah, that's it. I can give you as many examples as possible. Also here you see that we had a cross. All these three lines, they crossed each other. Here also had a cross, but it ended up just colliding. So here we had another cross, stop loss underneath this previous red candle before the cross, and then you can put your TP at a 1 to 2. Okay, and yeah, that's it basically. That's it basically. But also, as you can see, this is a great, the area where the three lines cross, it can act as a great supply or demand zone. You see that price, whenever it came to this area, we had a massive sell-off, so we can also use that to your advantage. Okay, so as you can see where these three lines crossed, so just look at the first candle before the cross. Okay, first candle before the cross is here. Stop loss will be above this candle, and then you can put a 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio. Okay, simple as that. You go to the next one. I want to show you guys as many examples as possible, because this strategy is very good if you're passing prop farms and if you're trading small accounts. This is a very good strategy. So again here you see that price, the three lines crossed, okay, and then the first red candle before the three lines break, okay. So this is the first red candle before the three lines crossed to indicate a change in direction, okay. So you can put your stop loss underneath this candle, okay, and then TP is a 1 to 2, simple as that. Again here they crossed, okay, this was a good cross, although the reason why I tell you go for a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 is because sometimes this happens, but if you are greedy you can also hold. It depends on what you want. So once these three lines crossed, again you would have put a stop loss underneath the first candle before the cross. So if you realize the cross happened at around this area and this area, right? So the first blue candle before the cross is around here, so this will be a stop loss, and then TP will be 1 to 2, simple as that. You go to the next entry. So here we have another entry which that the three lines crossed, okay. So the three lines crossed, and then we have the first red candle before the cross is here, and then you would have aim for 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio, as simple as that. You can do this over and over again. You can practice it because I know it works, so you can practice it. But the only rule that I have for this, where you can find better entries, you can use only and only the M15, because it's the one of the time frames that I've been working with, and it is clearly working, okay. The strategy works best in M15 than any other time frame. So but anyways, as you can see, where this was the cross, okay, they crossed around here. Let's say the market was here, you caught it at around this area, and the market has already passed. So just put your buy, okay, look for any other confluence, maybe a breakout, you look for a demand zone, whatever, and then you aim for 1 to 2, as simple as that. Okay, so put your stop loss. The maximum stop loss should be beneath the first red candle or the blue candle that formed before the trending move. Okay, here we have the same thing. We had a cross, the three lines crossed. After the three lines crossed, what do you want to see? You put your stop loss above the first blue candle before the cross, and then afterwards you aim for 1 to 2, okay, 1 to 2. Sometimes you can aim for positions. For instance, this is a good entry. You can aim for this area here, because you know that price can potentially find resistance at that area, so that will be a good area to take your sell positions at, to take your TPs, okay. So look for another area where these lines cross, and it's basically the same thing over and over again. They crossed here, the first red candle is here, stop loss above, then you aim for 1 to 2, simple as that. You can do this over and over and over and over and over and over again. But just to show you a picture, even here you see that this three lines crossed, and then you aim for the first candle before the cross. It can be this one, it can be even this big one here, and then you aim for 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio, simple as that. So given that information, if you go back to the current time, okay, let me just be opening up. If you go back to the current time, okay, this is the current candle, we see that the same thing is happening, okay. We had a cross of these three lines, okay, and since we have a cross of these three lines, we know that price can potentially look towards the next area where these three lines crossed. So this is a good area to take your first entries for, your first TPs if you are to buy. This was the